5 minutes.
You're watching primetime news of Radio Television Serbia. Respected viewers, the special Russian envoy Viktor Chernomyrdin arrived today in Belgrade after 2 days of meetings with the Finnish President Martti Ahtisaari and the Deputy Secretary of State of the U.S., Strobe Talbot. Upon arrival at the Belgrade airport, Viktor Chernomyrdin stated briefly, "Now it is most important to end the bombardment and stop killing civilians." The planners and executors of the destruction of our country, although taken back by the latest diplomatic initiatives, continue to destroy civilian facilities throughout the country. The NATO aggressor led by the U.S. killed 4 civilians in Gnjilane and 2 more in Istok. In Belgrade, in Čukarica area, they hit 1 civilian facility at one of the busiest traffic intersections. In the murderous attack of the NATO criminals on Gnjilane this morning, 4 people died and 15 were injured. The target of these Western killers were the civilian facilities in the industrial zone of Gnjilane, no military installations anywhere nearby. In the 5 minutes, which was the extent of this attack, there were 4 missiles that hit the site. The restaurant Mladost saw the death of 4 people. 7 people are hospitalized. The rest were released after the medical assistance. This beastly attack completely destroyed this public restaurant, the car park area of Kosmet Transit Company, and the machine park of Binačka Morava. The place was visited by foreign journalists. 2 people died and several were injured in the attack of the fascist alliance of NATO on the correctional facility in Istok. 4 people suffered serious injuries during the attack of these murdering fascists on the hotel park at the center of Peć. Those injured are from the office building that was severely damaged since it is close to the hotel. The target of these criminals was also the village Zagorska Foča, close to Prizren, exclusively Albanian population. No human casualties, but great material damage because they destroyed 10 houses to the ground. In a repeated attack, they hit the area with 10 more missiles, especially the livestock market. Fortunately, the livestock market in Prizren was empty, but the civilian facilities nearby suffered a lot of damage. At the same time, they hit with 6 missiles the area of Vojindol on the road Istok-Zubin Potok. Sometime before 1 p.m., they attacked the area of Belačevac near Kosovo Polje. 10 minutes later, in the same county, 4 missiles hit the area Pomazatin. In these areas, only Albanians live. The target of the aggressor was also the wider area of Gora, hit by 2 missiles. We have no information yet on the victims of this mindless NATO attack. In the second attack yesterday on the southeastern part of Bujanovac County, they severely injured a villager from Borovac. In Belgrade, the director and editor-in-chief of Tanjug, Dušan Đorđević, signed with the CNN representative Brent Sadler an agreement on the use of the informations of the Yugoslav National News Agency. According to the agreement, the use of Yugoslav news begins today. Given the time differences, it is a matter of question whether CNN will be able to show this report in its prime time. According to the latest data of the police investigation from Prizren, on the 14th of May, the NATO fascists killed near Korisha 80 people on the site. 1 more person died in the hospital from the for the injuries. They killed 10 infants, 26 children younger than 15, 42 people between 15 and 45, and 3 older persons. All of the victims are refugees, Albanians going back to their homes. According to the data confirmed thus far, this column of refugees with 55 tractors and 1 truck numbered 622 people. All of these facts confirm once again that the motive of the aggressor is not humane. The motive doesn't come from the desire to protect Kosovo Albanians, and their attacks are not targeting military facilities, but the entire population of our country. The units of the anti-aircraft force of Yugoslavia downed today around 4:45 in the afternoon 1 drone of the enemy. near Uroševac. This drone fell near the village of Talinovce, close to the road between Pristina and Uroševac. Despite NATO's daily bombing on Uroševac and the wider area, the aggressor did not manage to disrupt the life in this town. The supply with daily food provisions is generally fine. Bread and milk products are distributed regularly. It is somewhat more difficult in the surrounding villages, Manastirac, Balić, Plešina, Staro Selo, that are often exposed to the air attacks of the criminals from the Western Alliance. I don't know whether these are people. Do they think about what they're doing with us, in general with people? I mean, are these animals? Do they have anything human within themselves? To consider that what they're doing, would this be good if they suffered it? To conclude this report from Uroševac, we bring you an image that is always joyful. In the Orthodox Church of Gnjilane, despite the bombing raid, there was a wedding ceremony of Aleksandar Nikolić from Uroševac and Vera Sekulić from Pristina. I would like to send them a message to all of those who wanted to destroy us, that no bombs or anything will prevent us. We wish them everything best and left to Uroševac with confidence in the goodwill of our people. In Helsinki, the discussion between Viktor Chernomyrdin and Martin Ahtisaari, as well as Trobe Talbot, was finished with the formulation of an opinion on the manner in which the NATO aggression in Yugoslavia is to end. In Bonn, the political directors of the foreign affairs ministers of the G8 countries are harmonizing the draft resolution of the UN Security Council. According to the Greek foreign minister, Germany, France and Italy support the Greek proposal for a 48-hour halt in the bombardment of Yugoslavia. Moreover, Italian parliament asked today that the end of the NATO bombardment should precede the political resolution of the UN Security Council. The parliamentarians appealed to their government to immediately ask its partners in the NATO for such an action in order to bring about a political solution as soon as possible. The second phase of the Helsinki negotiations was held in high secrecy. Chernomyrdin's advisor Vladimir Sergeyev said that Chernomyrdin is defending the position of Russia adopted by its government and parliament. Sergeyev noted that Chernomyrdin's persistence can accomplish a lot in terms of these negotiations, as well as in the overall solution regarding the Kosovo problems. As to the decision on the end of the bombardment, Sergeyev noted that it would require harmonization of the positions of Yugoslavia, Russia and NATO. In Bonn, there was a meeting of the political directors of the ministers of foreign affairs of the G8 countries to work on a draft resolution for the UN Security Council on the principles of the resolution of the Kosovo crisis. The head of the German diplomacy, Josef Fischer, greeted the statement of the Yugoslav Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesman Nebojša Vujović on the readiness of Yugoslavia to discuss the principles for the resolution of the crisis formulated by the G8 countries. At the same time, Ibrahim Rugova stated for the German paper Woche that he advocates direct negotiations with Belgrade and disarming of the so-called KLA. Sergei Stepashin is the new Prime Minister of Russia. With majority of votes, 297 for and 55 against, Russian Duma voted him in. The vote took only 27 seconds. The new Prime Minister Stepashin has taken over the government, and he has to form his own cabinet within a week, in which, as he announced, there will be places for professionals regardless of party lines. In his introductory speech, he announced new energetic measures for the economic and social strategy of Russia, already begun with Evgeny Primakov. The events in Yugoslavia warn us that everything that happens there is also directed towards Russia. And the union of Russia, Belarus and Yugoslavia is a strategic goal of the Russian policy, said Stepashin in Duma, stressing that this question will be raised during his visit to Minsk on the 4th of June. Today, it's most important to stop the bombing and create a dialogue that will enable us to find a political solution for this conflict. In Russia, an international fund for support of Yugoslavia was established today. So far, 40 regions of Russia have shown their willingness to help, as well as state governments of Belarus and Ukraine. It was stressed that the fund will focus on joint projects of bilateral character in the economic and scientific areas. The Italian Prime Minister Massimo D'Alema stated in the parliament that Rome was always for political and against a military solution for Kosovo, and that he therefore supports all diplomatic activities towards that kind of resolution. He confirmed that his government supports the initiative to end the bombardment. The Italian Prime Minister also said that ground troops would be a big mistake. In Athens, the Greek Foreign Minister Papandreou stated that Germany, Italy and France support his initiative for a 48-hour halt in the bombardment of Yugoslavia that should be used towards a peaceful solution for Kosovo. All radio and TV stations in Greece report the statement of a high Pentagon official that the peace and political solution for the Balkans is close at hand. The opposition Conservative Party of Great Britain, even if in principle supportive of Tony Blair's foreign policy, asked for an establishment of a special commission to investigate how the war in Yugoslavia was started in the first place. This commission should investigate all information and occurrences that led to this aggression in order to determine the responsibility for this mindlessness that could have been avoided. We cannot hide anymore the differences within NATO. The British media for the first time admit that the militaristic plans of Tony Blair do not find support of most of the NATO countries. After America's lack of readiness, there was a new shock in Britain by the statement of German Chancellor Schröder, who stated that the ground troops invasion is out of question. Britain, as the commentators say, is completely isolated in its appeals for ground troops invasion on Yugoslavia. The leading countries of NATO are seeking peace and end of the aggression by diplomatic means. This cannot be hidden, but the advisors of Tony Blair continue to pressure the public and the media. So in Britain there is very little coverage of the latest diplomatic efforts. From the US, another diagnosis of Clinton's political actions. This time the judgment was passed by the magazine Free Republic that claims that Clinton is the least capable and most corrupt president in the U.S. history. America has never before been in a war as stupid as this one. Many predicted that this 42nd president would be a charlatan in foreign policy, but few could foresee the tragedy he caused in the Balkans. The U.S. Air Force mercilessly bombs the vulnerable ones on behalf of those that Clinton's administration stupidly adopted as protégés. And the Albanians are leaving Kosovo, and the suffering of the Serbs is greater. Clinton sounds mindless more and more. When he spoke about the massacre in Littleton, he began talking about the Balkan War, then about criticism of the women's rights in Afghanistan, then whined about his failed peace initiatives in Africa, and concluded by saying that U.S. faces the problem of homosexuals. Call for a state now, cries out the Free Republic, adding that this mindless war in Yugoslavia, led by the least capable and most corrupt president in U.S. history, should end immediately. NATO crusaders are under growing pressure to open diplomatic possibilities. This they are forced to do because of the increasing fissures within the alliance and the changes in the public opinion of almost all countries of the aggressive Western Bloc. The Washington political circles are saying, according to what the newspapers say, such as New York Times and Washington Post, that there are big differences within NATO. For example, several countries have expressed open concern because of the bombing campaign. Only a day after the polling results of Washington Post and ABC, New York Times today reports the results from a new poll that shows a dramatic decline in the public support for the NATO air raids, as they call here the aggression against Yugoslavia. Most of those polled are against these air raids. The public opinion is oscillating for two reasons: the growing concern for civilian casualties and the awareness that NATO is not winning this war. Washington Post gives today a completely different image of the war in Kosovo against the lies of the NATO aggressor, who is conducting a singularly really dirty war in Kosovo. The report of the Washington Post journalist from Kosovo clearly shows that the refugees were not expelled by army or police forces and that the government is making a lot of effort to bring the refugees home. In this, as well as other reports of the same journalist who visited Uroševac, Prizren, Gnjilane, one reads the accounts of Kosovo people that do not match at all the propaganda machine of Jamie Shea from NATO or Kenneth Bacon from Pentagon. This reporter also visited the survivors of the attack near Korisha in the Prizren hospital, an attack in which NATO planes killed almost 90 people. These wounded people said that there were no military installations in Korisha nor any military movements. Thus, the reporter clearly denies the lies of Shea and Bacon, who claimed immediately after the massacre that the Serbs had used these people as a living shield for their military facilities. For the first time, Washington Post says openly that there is no ethnic cleansing in Kosovo. The conflict was between the legal army and the separatist forces. The exodus was a result of those actions. The American paper added one more discovery of the propaganda maneuvering of NATO. In several places during the text, they mentioned that the reporter was not monitored and that he could have freedom of movement and discussion in Kosovo. There is no censorship, therefore, which CNN has been claiming, and the entire blockade of news that they've been talking about. Washington Post, contrarily, says that Brussels is the seat of propaganda, according to these claims. Right at NATO's headquarters, there is a whole team of propaganda experts from Washington and other NATO countries working together. They coordinate daily their war propaganda in order to serve the same statements every day at the same time in Brussels, London, Washington, Paris, Ottawa and Bonn. The president of the Journalist Association of China, which numbers over 550,000 members, Shang Huase, said during his meeting with the Yugoslav ambassador to China that the Chinese people support the heroic resistance of the Yugoslav people. Shao, who is also president of the most influential daily, Zhenmin Zhibao, said that the fight of the Yugoslavs is just and has the support of all peace-loving people in the world. He said that the Chinese public is very aware of the crimes of NATO led by America. In Macedonia, it is noted that the Kosovo crisis will be soon under the jurisdiction of the UN. Today, Macedonia was visited by the UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. The spokesman of the armed forces said that reserve officers have been demobilized as of today. The NATO aggression has led to an economic collapse of Macedonia. Many reputable producers such as Ohis, Jugochrom, Fenimak and textile factories closed their gates and have massive layoffs. Macedonian transporters asked the alliance to make up for their losses due to the aggression and threatened to block the roads and border crossings. Not awaiting the results of the action that stopped the smuggling operation into Kosovo of greater quantities of arms, Dominic Robertson and Philip Hudiger, CNN cameramen, fled Macedonia. Albanians in western part of Macedonia are literally resting on arms. The police found in a vehicle of a couple from the village of Radolište 190 bombs. On behalf of the government of Yugoslavia, the Prime Minister Momir Bulatovic sent his greetings to the new Russian Prime Minister Stepashin, stressing that the close relations will continue to develop. The latest research into the public opinion in the West shows that the Kosovo crisis caused by NATO aggression is close to resolution. It seems that this pressure will eventually affect even the most famous American draft dodger. This was the tenor of the many protests abroad of Yugoslavs and their friends. Today there were protests in Linz, Vienna, Stuttgart, Bratislava, Stockholm, Cleveland and Toronto. In all greater cities of Canada, where you have Serbian communities, there are daily protests against the aggression of NATO on Yugoslavia. Most numerous protests are held in Toronto and Vancouver, and then also in Edmonton, Calgary, Kitchener, Hamilton, and other towns. This is a very common image from the streets of Vancouver. They usually begin at the main square, Canada Place. The participants then walk through the streets and come back to the square after a few hours. All generations take part. For the most part, they're young people, even the youngest ones, children. See a lot of Yugoslav flags, Serbian flags, as well as Canadian flags. You see more and more Greek and Macedonian flags as well. The American flag, this is how they carry it. Wanting to remind everybody of the victims of the aggression, they want to essentially remind everybody how many innocent civilians have been killed. These girls are Serbs. They walk in front of the column and give the leaflets about the truth in Kosovo. Stop with the bombing and the killing. Ask the Serbs and Canadians, sending a message to the Serbs to persevere in the defense of their country.
And I hope every time when we finish one of our manifestations, I will say, it's over, we don't come tomorrow.
Opponents of the NATO aggression on Yugoslavia blocked army barracks at the outskirts of Stuttgart that houses special forces of the German army. The participants of this protest accused Germany that 54 years after the defeat of Nazism has begun an aggressor war again. At the same time, in the area of Brandenburg, several dozens of protesters occupied the office for recruitment of German soldiers, placing a huge banner at the entrance, "Soldiers are killers." Police had to intervene. In Belgrade, the managing board of the Socialist Party of Serbia discussed the current situation in Kosovo and decided upon the priority tasks for the Socialist Party in the upcoming period. Only the military actions in Kosovo that we see today, the only ones are those of NATO, who are killing children, women, old people, and destroying all of our material well-being. They have forced everybody, Serbs, Albanians, Turks, Muslims, Gypsies, to leave their homes in Kosovo, and now trying to justify this continued aggression, they prevent them from coming home. The members of our defensive forces, as well as the people, oppose this technologically superior enemy, inflicting continual damage. The main task in Kosovo and throughout the country is to defend our country. This is our main task. The police forces, the army, and the people are unified and determined to persevere in this defense task. The Socialist Party of Serbia stresses that all of the state organs, despite the aggression on our country, have managed to make all of the public functions really there, and especially important is the Executive Council for Kosovo that has organized the work of the civilian structures as well as their successful functioning. The priority in the upcoming period, aside from the defense of the country, is to normalize the situation in Kosovo, to continue the political process, to resolve outstanding social questions, to renew the inter-ethnic confidence and the return of all of the refugees and displaced people. In view of the future challenges for the Socialist Party in Kosovo, and in view of the complex tasks for the future, the Executive Board passed a decision on strengthening the personnel of this party and its organization, as well as its Executive Council. The leadership of the Regional Board of the Serbian Socialist Party is comprised of President Vojislav Živković, Vice Presidents Milorad Samardžić, Daniela Dimić, Harija Rugova, Secretary of the Executive Board Dragan Marković, and the other members of this Executive Board are
Veljko Odalović, Đura Lazić, Guljbehar Šabović, Vesko Pirić, Zoran Đorđević, Ljubiša Maravić, Ljubiša Stevanović, Momčilo Stanojević, Dobrosav Radović, Jordan Ristić, Zvonimir Stević, Jovica Jovanović, Simeon Radović i Miladin Jović, kaže se u
This was announced by the Executive Board of the Socialist Party of Serbia. In the announcement of the Secretariat of the Serbian Radical Party, it is stated that the aggression of NATO criminals on our fatherland finds key support in daily lies by the Western media, whose only goal is to justify the criminal actions of the American and Western European murderers. It's unbelievable that CNN, BBC and other leading media continue to talk about humanitarian catastrophe, while the evil murder and massacre of civilians, whether Serbs or Albanians, committed by NATO are qualified as collateral damage. It was noted that most of our media fulfilled their patriotic duty to inform the citizens of the consequences of the NATO aggression. One exception are those media that are controlled by the opposition political parties who are asking for protectorate over Serbia and see the American victory as their only chance for political power. The Yugoslav Left Coalition continues to advocate peaceful solution for Kosovo and greets all initiatives in that direction that would not endanger the sovereignty and territorial integrity of our country. This was noted at the session of the Regional Board for Northern Banat, held in Choka, coordinated by the member of the board of U. Živko Šokovački. The courage of our people is a guarantee for our continued defense, as well as that we can show to the rest of the world that we have no good soil for the weeds of the American way of democracy. American democracy cannot survive here. We're calling upon all those who haven't woken up around the world to raise their voice against this demon of evil. The Serbian Renewal Movement says that all obstacles to the end of the aggression against our country and to the comprehensive solution for Kosovo can be resolved by a consistent application of the UN Charter and other international norms. Our people have managed to preserve Kosovo, the sovereignty and territorial integrity of our country in one of the cruelest wars in recent history. These key facts have been accepted by the G8 countries, and there is no reason not to accept the principles they agreed upon with appropriate documents. The Organization of Serbian Reserve Officers notes that during this hardest battle for the survival of Yugoslavia, some politicians, but also officers, succumbed to doubt and sold themselves to the enemy. One of them is General Vuk Obradovic, who, due to his sick political ambitions, failed to follow the example of his fellow officers who decided to defend their honor. Therefore, the reserve officers not only condemn the dishonest and shameful behavior of Vuk Obradovic, but do not think of him as an ethical person who can be called an officer of our country. The Ministry of Health has established a special commission for analysis of samples of air, soil and water. The first results show that the aggressors have attacked both the people and the nature of Yugoslavia, but with reasonable caution, all seasonal products can be used. As far as our menu for this spring of 1999, it should look like any other spring. The dilemma as to whether to buy onions, salad, strawberries, fruits, and whether this is polluted by the NATO bombardment is resolved by the results of the latest expert analysis. There is no reason to fear, our doctors say. All of this can be consumed. The results of our analysis show that all of the seasonal vegetables and fruits can be used. They're not polluted. We took samples from the farmers' markets in Belgrade and samples of the first strawberries and cherries that came from individual farmers. The results have shown that these greens do not have any toxic materials, so please use the greens both vegetables and fruits, without any risk for your health. We have to stress, however, that of course you have to apply all the regular hygienic principles while preparing the grains for consumption, that is to wash them under flowing water. All information about what kind of water we are drinking, what kind of air we are breathing, can be gained every day in Belgrade in the house of Laza Lazarevic in Hilandar Street. This is from the experts of the Educational Center organized within the Ministry of Environment and formed under the auspices of the City Library of Belgrade. The food production in the largest facility in the country, in Middle Banat, are working at full speed. Some companies have even better results than before the war began. The Zrenjanin milk factory purchased 20% more milk in the second half of April and the beginning of May. Now they send to the market over 2 million liters of milk per month. Zrenjanin oil factory Diamant works at full capacity with its 2,000 workers. They deliver daily 200 tons of food, of which 140,000 bottles of cooking oil. Meat producers Bek and Agroživ also work at full capacity. Agroživ daily production there amounts to 70 tons of poultry. Wheat and flour are also abundant. They will meet the needs until the next harvest. Given the current state of the wheat fields in the rich farms of Banat, that harvest should be very good. Banat sends a message. New offerings of food are coming to all dinner tables of our country. The Federal Commission for Evaluation of the War Damage Caused by the NATO Aggression, presided over by Zoran Lilic, created expert teams for coordination of the basic tasks to be carried out by Republic's committees. Today, 6 such expert groups were established, 1 for loss of life, for injuries to the body and health, for freedom and honor, for the damage to property of individuals and legal entities, for war expenses, for loss of national revenues and loss of national wealth, for damage to the environment and damage to properties of the federal state. The state has so far, by means of daily solidarity contributions, collected about 150 million dinars as assistance to the workers left without their livelihood in this dirty war. The Republic's government also came about with a program for helping those workers. As we learn, they're thinking about giving special credit to all the people who will try to renew their houses. They'll be tax exempt. Within the framework of the employment program for the 68,000 workers left without their livelihood due to the destruction of factories, there is a possible plan that there would be 24 to 36 average monthly incomes offered as an initial investment. Credit banks could then approve of twice that amount as a loan to such workers. This was noted by the Minister for Labor and Social Services at the session of the Union of Serbia, which addressed the economic and social program of the government. The Minister of Science and Technology, Branislav Ivkovic, stressed the approval so far of 400 production and 50 development projects, that 650 workers from destroyed factories have already gotten offers for employment in other liquid companies who have shortage of skilled workforce. Ivkovic said that 28,000 workers have direct choice whether to be retrained within the program for small and mid-sized companies or to go to agricultural activities under favorable conditions. In the opinion of the Chamber of Commerce, one should give consideration that those with highest skills from the destroyed factories continue their employ in the upcoming reconstruction effort of those factories. The President of the Serbian Union, Tomislav Banovic, announced the initiative for providing packages of goods for workers left without their livelihood, and the Union will continue to insist to give assistance priorities for every employee that lost their job. The representatives of 9 humanitarian agencies from the UN who are currently visiting our country visited today Aleksinac, Čuprija and Kraljevo and discussed with citizens of those places the daily dangers they experience because of the NATO aggressor.
Sa predstavnicima Kragujevačke zastave,
With the members of the Kragujevac Zastava factory, members of the delegation of the UN spoke about the destruction of this factory. Both on the 9th and on the 12th of April, about 20 missiles of NATO alliance destroyed to the ground Zastava Kragujevac. 36,000 people were left jobless, and about 160,000 workers in Serbia connected directly with the production activities in this factory are also affected. This could be seen by the members of the UN Commission that visited the factory. Afterwards, the head of the mission, Sergio Vieira de Melo, stated, "The destruction of a factory of this kind is an economic and social disaster, and we have to end this conflict as soon as possible. It's necessary to end this conflict in Kosovo, and afterwards there will be resolution for all other problems." The members of this interagency mission of the UN saw all of the destruction and the suffering of civilians, and they'll offer programs for employment of all of the workers of Zastava factory until it is renewed. But it will take a lot of time and money. At the same time, they'll do their best to solve other problems before the winter, such as with the heating plant in Kragujevac.
Next, a hearing on a government proposal providing public information on the safety and security of chemical manufacturing and storage sites.